Okay, so the Mamar itself began with the pasuk Mah Tovu, and in order to explain the Mah Tovu, he brought in the new pasuk, Yisata l'recha nesis v'nei keshet tzela. Let me just show you where the pasuk is in Tehillim. So look at page 28. Page 28 is this pasuk in Tehillim. This is chapter 60. Here it says, "Nasati l'recha nesis v'nei keshet tzela." Let's see how the English translation translates it. You give those who fear you a banner for truth's sake. You raise their banner, their pride, so that your promise that your people will have their land of peace forever shown as truth. Then it says the word nace, a banner can also be translated as a trial. Whoever connects the two meanings, Hashem gives us a trial. A test is to raise the person like a banner. Exactly what we're learning about over here. Okay, so I just want to do this inside. Once again, because we stopped in the middle. So let's start back with the first page in the beginning. Welcome. The first page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. Allah said, in order to understand and answer the questions in the pasuk Mah Tovu Alecha Yaakov, we'll start with the bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'aleph. Ish lahagdim tchila, first was preface by Shekosel, V'sata L'recha Neis, this Neis of Nei Keshet Tzela. Pirush Rashi, Neis means Nisyonim shel tzaros harba. Hashem gives those who fear Him many nisyonis, tests. So the word lihisnesis means to be tested by it, and the test is im yamdu b'yirasecha, if they'll stand strong in fear of God, or the test will have an influence on them that they will sort of buckle under. They will lose their fear of Hashem under the circumstances. Behind the Pirush Nes Lashon Asayim. So according to Rashi, the word nest means a test. Mitzudas David is another commentary. Mitzudas David Pirush Nes Lashon Hagboah Barama Kenes Hagavoya. So you saw in the English, Nes is like a banner, something which is very high. And what does that mean? The Sata, the Recha, Nes, It means like this. Hashem says, I gave the God-fearing people like a banner. I raised them very high. And it's not about tests, it's just about raising them. The Rebbe says now that both of these interpretations, both of these ways of explaining it are connected. Page 193. Shnei HaParushim Huma Medrash. Both of these are from the Medrash. Shemafarish Neis Nesleisis. The Medrash says, Nisoyin Acha Nisoyin, one Nisoyin after another, Gidulin Acha Gidulin, one raising to a higher level after another raising to a higher level. And again, B'shvila Naseisim Ba'olam, Hashem does this to test us. B'shvila Gadlim Ba'olam, Hashem does this to raise us, to lift us higher. Kenei Sazeh Shel Sfina, like the banner in a boat. So clearly the Medrash is saying that both of these meanings are applied and they could be reconciled, they can come together. Then there's a Pirush HaShlishi, a third interpretation. Pirush HaShlishi b'nes u'loshen niflois. It means a miracle. That's where we use the word. Nes means a miracle. And that's also connected to the root of a word that means to lift higher, because in Yanihu Mashagavaya Merevim and Ateva. What is a miracle? A miracle is something that stands out, it's above, it transcends nature. So therefore, to be higher, to have a miracle, to be tested, all three things are interconnected. Shem gives us the Siyone Shotzaras Harbe, and it says, the Gadlon Ba'ilin, the purpose is to raise us, to lift us, Kenes Shel Sfina, like the banner on top of a boat. Sheinish L'Marochet. So I guess the boat has a high flag, and it says what kind of boat it is. And this is something you can see from very far away. I know the Gam b'mayim rabim shalmei hayom, even when we're in the great waters of the ocean. Amat al-charod ala yeshu v'sfinan, and that puts fear into the people that are sitting in the boat. They're afraid there'll be waves, there'll be a storm. But this banner, the banner stands high above the waters. Kach Yirei Hashem, in the same way, those that fear Hashem, they're also not intimidated, not afraid of the test. Hey, Yireicha Oimdim Chazal, they stand strong. Ba'avedosav b'Torah mitzvahs, in the Avodah of Torah mitzvahs, because they have the absolute trust in Hashem, because Hashem is above nature, which means even if there's something going on that according to natural circumstances, it appears that you can't daven, you can't learn, you can't do mitzvahs, there's a government that's stopping me, there's a neighbor that's stopping me, my work is stopping me. That's according to the order of nature. But being that he believes in Hashem, who's above nature, and that he's in charge, there's nothing in the world that can stand in my way. This is a pasuk in reference to Yaakov that he built the Mizbeach, and he called it Havaya Nisi. And this is after he had different confrontations and difficulties with Esau, Laban. So it means Huneis Shalanu. That was Hashem is my banner. Hashem is, I trust in him, and therefore all the things that seem to be threatening according to nature, to me, it's not threatening, it's not frightening. I'm not limited by the laws of nature. Now he's going to explain this. Bir Inyan, it says, this is the pasuk which we had in the previous minor. Ki menaseh havaya alakechem eschem ladas. Hashem, your God, tests you to know. Which means, before that, Hashem doesn't need a test. He knows what we feel. He knows how loyal we are. He knows everything about us internally without a test. So what does it mean? Like they and the boyim lepinas das, that through passing a test, the person rises to a higher level in serving Hashem. Then not only they know about Hashem and they understand Hashem, but das, it penetrates in a way that they feel it just like you feel when you see something physically with your eyes. That's how clear it becomes to me. I know. When there are things that are moinim, they're blocking, and they're getting in the way from serving Hashem, whether it's Torah or Tefillah, whether it's davening or learning, or whether it's Kiyum mitzvahs. If you look at the pasuk, we have the pasuk here, so let's see the words inside. The pasuk here is on page Page 31. Hashem is trusting, is testing you to know, but when it's the word that it uses is Nasa Hashem Elokeichem. It uses two names of Hashem. One is the name Havaya, and one is the name Elokim. What does this mean? So it says, through passing the test, you reach the level of Dasas Havaya. What is the difference between the name Havaya and Elokim? So we need to give just a little introduction regarding this question. That we say that this name of Hashem is this, that name of Hashem is responsible for this, a different name of Hashem is responsible for something else. What do you mean different names? Hashem is one, Hashem Echad. So what do we mean when we say different names? Actually, there's a Mamar from the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, where he elaborates on this subject. It's a very long Mamar with a lot of details. And that's probably one of the most, I would say, the source that explained this in the most lengthy, elaborate way. It's in Derech Mitzvah. But the main point is that, of course, Hashem is one, but Hashem does different things in the world. In fact, everything comes from Hashem. And even though we know that Hashem has an angel that's in charge of fire, his name is Gabriel. He has an angel that's in charge of water. His name is Michael. He has an angel that's in charge of healing people. That's Raphael. We'll learn about them in next week's parsha. So there are different angels in charge of different things, but it doesn't mean chas v'shalom that the angels are the ones who really do everything. Hashem himself does everything. The angels are only like the tools through which Hashem works. It's like saying, this I wrote with a green pen, and this I wrote with a red pen, and the other thing I wrote with a black pen, and this I did with a brush, but it's all one, it's all Hashem. So being that Hashem does everything, and when we say that Hashem, for example, is chesed, doesn't mean Hashem is defined by chesed. It means there are times where he manifests his presence in the world by chesed. And that is when he's giving us an abundance of good. There are times when Hashem manifests his presence in the world through Gevura, and that's when he is doing things like punishing those who are evil and eliminating them like he did with the Mabul. So it's Hashem, but he's manifesting his presence through a different attribute. So the different names of Hashem, all it means is different ways that Hashem reveals himself and manifests himself in the world. That's what the difference is. So we have these two names which are considered the most, I would say, the most major names of Hashem, even though there are many names. And the two names is Havaya, Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei, and Elokim. And the difference is he's going to explain, we'll soon do it inside. Elokim is the name of Hashem which represents nature. It means everything Hashem does in the natural order, all the natural things that are happening in the world on a constant basis, it comes from Hashem, and it's coming, and Hashem is shining his light through the name Elokim. When things happen that are supernatural, that are miraculous, that means that Hashem is shining his light through the name Havaya. That's the difference. Let's look inside.
And what is
Havaya?
what he does through the name of Havaya?
Miracles, things that are not of Pitana. Elokim is Bigematria Hateva. Actually, the word Elokim, the numerical value of the word Elokim is 86. Because we don't spell it with a kuf, we spell it with a hey. So it's 86. And the Gematria, the word Hateva, is also 86. Hateva means the order of nature. According to the order of nature, he has man who beseder the ovar hoiva va'asi. There is the realm of time, and time has its limitations. There's the past, there's the present, and there's the future. Hoya, hoiva, v'yiya. There's certain things that we say hoya, it was, certain things is, and certain things will be in the future. They're three separate times. By day, Hanisyonis, but through a test, Magim, Magasas Avaya, we come to a level that we can recognize not just Hashem as He shines His light through the natural order, but Havaya, Hashem as He is above nature. And that's in the name Havaya. Havaya actually stands for Hoya, Hoiva, V'yiyah Ke'echad. That by Hashem, past, present, and future is all one. It's all the same. He's not limited by past, present, and future. By Him, we don't say, "Oh, this is in the past," so He have no longer any control over it. Or to say something so you don't know exactly what's going to happen. Hashem, by Him, past, present, and future is all one, because this limitation is part of nature. So you could know Hashem through nature. Imagine a person who believes in Hashem and says, wow, I look at the world, I see the sun, the moon, the stars, the constellation, I see life, babies are born, people living and accomplishing things, and I see Hashem makes all this happen, but that means I'm perceiving Hashem through the natural order. And Hashem Havaya is when you perceive Hashem and you recognize that Hashem is above nature. And that's when I recognize and notice the things that are supernatural. You also need a bracha for that. Sometimes a person can have a miracle in their life and they don't even realize that this is really something from Hashem Havaya. They just think it's natural, a mistake, coincidence. I bumped into this person, that just happened then, this happened this. Yeah.
When you say this occurs on a constant basis, it's not like one big miracle. It's kind of being received like every day.
You talking about the miracles or the nature?
Yeah, like you see about coincidence.
Well, generally speaking, even things that people think are a coincidence, we can say it's still happening in the natural order, but I'm recognizing that Hashem is behind it. But sometimes there's actually something which is miraculous. Like, I'll give you an example. I was in Australia at the time of the 6-Day War. The 6-Day War in Israel in 1967 was something that the whole world was stunned. It's very hard to describe. They were stunned at the victory that Israel had. Why? Israel was much smaller then, physically. Also, they were not as developed as they were today with technology and everything else. They were being attacked not from one side, but from a few sides. Jordan, Egypt, Syria, and their intentions was just to wipe them out. And it's known, it became known later how Israel prepared for something like, God forbid, 40. They were thinking of where can we even put a cemetery? They were thinking, who knows how many casualties are going to be? And no one knew what the end of this is going to be. What was the end, as we all know? And in 6 days, there was a miraculous victory. And what happened was, there's a lot of details to the story, but the general key thing that happened was that Israel bombed all the airplanes of the Egyptians before they even got off the ground. Now they make it under the ground, but then it was on the ground. They flew over, bombed all that, and then they bombed all the tanks. And before you know it, the Air Force was destroyed. So the Israeli they were on the top of things in the air, and then they became on top of things on the ground, and they conquered land with so much more than they had before. They conquered the Golan Heights, they conquered the Koisla Maravi, possibly Yerushalayim, and this was really a miracle in front of our eyes. But there were people, so I met someone, I was actually doing mitzvah tefillin, I went to a hospital, there's someone to put on tefillin, and the guy says to me, but how come all these miracle stories are only in the Torah? How come they don't happen today? And this is literally a week or two after. So I say, are you kidding? What just happened in Israel? That's a miracle. The general who led the army, his name was Moshe Dayan. So he says, Moshe Dayan, he knows these Arab like his 5 fingers. He knew exactly what to do and how to attack them. And all of a sudden, it's just natural. So sometimes there are situations which are mamish miraculous, I guess the definition of a miracle is that the people who judge things and assess things according to nature would never have predicted this outcome. Never possible to think that this woman can have children, possible to think that this financial crisis could recover, or to think that in this war they could be successful. These are the kind of things that when it does happen, that's a miracle. But something that happens like on a daily basis, like I happen to meet someone and it's the right person I need in the right time, even though you can see more clearly Hashem's hand, but that's considered nature. But in both cases, what we need is to be able to recognize it, to see it. You do it, it's known. Again, this mimer is a continuation, so those of you who learned the previous mimer will understand this a little bit easier. But I'll explain it briefly. It's known, Shanisoyim who Shanit Tzalaki who Mustav Nelam B'Yosef. I'm on top of page 194. Everything in the world has a spark of godliness. Everything in the world has a spark of godliness, and the spark of godliness that gives life to a test, that spark is very hidden. Like I explained yesterday and last week, why is it hidden? So when there's a spark of godliness in food, even if it's kosher food, it's considered hidden because it's not godly. If it's in the Beis HaMikdash food, it's godly. If it's matzah on Pesach, it's godly. If it's something like wine and challah and food for Shabbos, it's godly. But ordinary food is something which is not godly, but it's not bad. But a nisayon not only is not godly, but it's something which opposes, it's fighting godliness. A nisayon is something that is making an effort to stop me from serving Hashem. We know there's a general principle that in Tzutza Shinof Ulamata, those sparks of godliness that fell to a lower place, Shorsha, their roots are Lamaila Yosef are much higher. And like the example of a wall made up of stones. The stones are on top of the wall. When the wall falls, they fall much further away from the original spot. So the wall would fall down. Those stones that are on the bottom of the wall, they fall very close to the original place. And those stones that fall far away, they're usually the ones from all the way on top. So the higher up they are, the further they fall. And the same thing is spiritually. That the godly spark that's in something that's very low is an indication that its source is very high. So the godly spark in the nisayon is from a higher source than the godly spark even in mitzvahs. So he gave a mashal of a wall, and the wall is made up of stones. So now he's going to explain what is the mashal stones. Letters, meaning letters of the alphabets, are called rocks or stones. Where do we find such a thing? It says in Sefer Yetzirah, Shtei Avanim bein Shtei Batim. Sefer Yetzirah is a book of Kabbalah that was written even before the Zohar. And there are three opinions who wrote it. One opinion is that Avraham Avinu wrote it. One opinion is that Adam Arishan wrote it. Another opinion is that Rabbi Akiva wrote it. So whichever one of the three wrote it, it's still, of course, a book of Kabbalah that stands out. And one of the things it says is that with 2 stones, you can build 2 houses. It's a metaphoric way of speaking. And what it means is that with 2 letters, you can make 2 words. So for example, if you have the letter Aleph and Beis, you can make 2 words out of those letters. Either Aleph Beis, it spells Av, which means a father, or Beis Aleph, which spells Ba, which means to come. If you have 3 letters, you can make 6 words. If you have 4 letters, you can make 24 words. you have 5 letters, keep going, who's mathematician here? Basically, the way it works is every number, you times it. In other words, if 2 letters, you can make 2 words. So with 3, you go 3 times 2 is 6. So if with 3 letters, you make 6 words, then with 4, it's 4 times 6, 24. 5 is 5 times 24, 120. 6 is 6 times 120, and then you keep going. But the point is that he's talking about letters of the alphabets, that with 2 letters, you can make 2 words. It means you can rearrange the letters in a different order, and they'll make up another word. But how does he refer to them as stones? Shtei avanim. So why are letters of the alphabets referred to, obviously in a specific context, as stones? They explained, Shem Shabayis Nivdim, just like a house is made up of stones, you take stones together and you put it together, and that's how you build a house. Based on how many stones, and based on the order of how you put together the stones, that's how big the house will be. The width of the house, the length of the house, and the breadth of the house will all depend on how many stones and how I organize the stones and what order they are put together. Same as with the word. In other words, just like we're drawing a parallel between stones and a house, meaning the stones are technical, but in the stones, we're creating a house for a person to live. Same thing with words. Words are technical. So if you have a word like Baruch, Beis, Reish, Vav, Chav, it's technical. You can take a pen and make a Beis, a Reish, a Vav, or a Chav, or you pronounce it verbally, Baruch. In that word, there's a content. The content is a blessing. And there's a lot we can say about what is a blessing, where does a blessing come from, what kind of blessing, what does a blessing accomplish. So the content is contained in the words. So the words are compared to a stone, and the content is like the house that the stone creates. So this is what he says. So the same as with words, oisias, letters rather, depending on how many letters, which letters, and how the combination of the letters is, how you combine them, so sometimes you can have the same letters, but if you rearrange it differently, it has a different meaning. Aleph and Beis, Shem Beis Oisis. You can build 2 houses, which means from 2 combinations. One is of and one is ba. Of means a father, ba means to come. Ushleisha is when there's 3 letters, but in a shishabatim, you can make 6 houses. In other words, 3 letters can be rearranged in 6 different ways. Now you're probably thinking, but sometimes when you rearrange the letters, they have no meaning. So the answer is, it has no meaning the way we understand in our language, but anytime you put letters together, it does create a certain meaning to it. And basically, any 2 letters have to create something which is contained in these 2 letters that have meaning. We have to know more about the letters, what the letters represent. There's actually a book written by Rabbi Ginsburg in Israel, where he goes into the meaning of each letter according to Kabbalah, the way it's drawn and the way it's pronounced and what that means. So here we have 3 letters. From 3 letters of the alphabet, you can build 6 houses. For example, Oisius, Hey, Tzadik, Reish. Let's take, for example, the 3 letters of Hey, Tzadik, and Reish. Sheshli, Shisha, Tzurufim. You could rearrange the Hey, Tzadik, and Reish 6 different ways. Either Hey, Tzadik, Reish, Hey, Reish, Tzadik, Tzadik, Hey, Reish, Tzadik, Reish, Hey, or Reish, Tzadik, Hey, or Reish, Hey, Tzadik. You do the Kabbalah Rebbe, Rebbe, Marina, Mah Tovu. There's something specific why he chose this example. It says there's a tradition that was passed on from Rebbe to Rebbe back to the Mah Tovu. In this 6 combinations of words, 3 of them are the primary ones, and the other 3 are the branches. In other words, just like in a tree, you have the trunk of the tree, and then you have branches that come out of the tree. With the Jewish people, we have the trunk is the 12 Shvatim, the 12 sons of Yaakov, and then all the people that come from them. In fact, in every family, it's like that. There's a husband and a wife. They have children. The children have children. So they're grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So there's the primary, and then there's the branches. There's 3 words that are the primary meaning of these letters, and 3 of them are the branches. What are the primary ones? Hatzar, Ratza, and Tzoyar. That arrangement, they are the 3 primary words that come out of these 3 letters. Rabbi Shem Tov said, that's the deeper meaning to the words that we say in Chumash, last week's Parsha. So hopefully we didn't forget it yet. Here's more Mamar. We have 2 more. You don't want to give it to the other. Anyone else that doesn't have? Everybody has?
We need more students.
More students, okay.
No.
Do you hear students out there? You don't know how many people are listening on Zoom. Yeah. Might be somebody in Brazil even. Okay. So, boy, ala teva, go into the teva. So Hashem Tov said, teva, the word teva means an ark. But teva in Hebrew also means a word. So it means, the words of davening, the words of Torah. Who go into the teva means haknisa, to enter the Torah tefillah. That when a person davens and a person learns, he should enter, go inside the davening and the learning, which means learn metachayis and daven metachayis. Whenever in a Mamar, the Rebbe wants to emphasize something very strongly, he would write it in Yiddish. And the reason why we'd write it in Yiddish, because that was the sort of the natural language that people speak. And when you hear something in your language, it penetrates deeper. Like everybody here knows, whoever comes from another country, that yes, you understand English, but when you say something in your language, you get it a little bit different. It just penetrates a little bit deeper. So the Rebbe says in Yiddish, learn metachayis and daven metachayis, which basically means there are 2 ways to be davening. One is you say the words, but you're not really passionate about what you're saying, and you're not really immersed in what you're saying. In fact, while you're saying the words, you might be thinking about other things. It happens not to anybody here, but there are people out there on the planet that while they're davening, they might end up thinking about other things. So you might be davening, and all of a sudden you find yourself benching. And you don't say, how did I get there? I'm davening. How am I saying middle of davening? I'll tell you the secret. You were saying Ashrei, and you said, and then you weren't thinking, so you went, oh, Baruch Ata Hashem, and all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of benching. So it happens sometimes that the mind is elsewhere, the mouth is moving, and I just take the wrong road, I get off of the wrong highway. So that's not called davening with tachayis, or learning with tachayis. Davening with tachayis, learning with tachayis means that when I'm davening or learning, I'm totally immersed in what I'm doing. So chayis, when you do something with a passion, that's an indication that I really have a desire to do what I'm doing. When does somebody do something and there's no chayis? When you don't really want it, you're doing it reluctantly, or at least because you have to do it. It's an obligation. But when you do something that you really want to do and you're excited about doing it, then you're totally immersed. Immersed. Immersed means shakua. What?
No. Is that in fashion? Like fashion?
Right, Shakwa, I mean, we're at the Nitzad B'toch Zeh. So that's what the word Rotza represents. Rotza means desire, that I want to. So we have three words. The word Rotza, the word Tzoyhar, and then the third word is the word Tzara. This is a very powerful statement. And that is that the word tzara, as we know, means distress. That's something which is painful. The word hatzar, it's a word that's found in the Megillah about Haman, someone who causes distress, someone who causes us, who is torturing us. So what he says is that when a person davens with true chayas, which means ratza, and he wants to really daven, and therefore he invests himself, he's invested in the davening, then the davening becomes a tzoyhar. What's tzoyhar? Tzoyhar in Hebrew means something, a bright light. Again, you might remember this from last week's parsha. It says in the parsha, tzoyhar tasa lateva. And Rashi actually brings two opinions. One opinion was they should make a window so there'd be lights. How did they have light in the table? One opinion is they made a window and the light shined in through the window. The other opinion is there was a very bright stone, a diamond, not only a diamond that shines when you shine a light on it, but a diamond that gives off light, and that lit up the table. But according to both interpretations, Sohar means light. Not only means light, but it means a very bright light. In Hebrew, Soharayim means the afternoon. Why? Because the sun shines in the morning, the sun shines later in the day. When is the brightest moment of the day? When the sun is shining in midday, when the sun is right in the middle of the sky, that's when it shines the brightest. So Tzohar means the brightest light. Tzara is the opposite. Tzara means distress. What he's saying is, through davening properly, we can turn things around. We rearrange the letters, and that which used to be distress can be turned around and become tzayar, the source of light. And this gives a very beautiful interpretation to the pasuk. It says, there's a time of distress for the Jewish people, but Hashem will bring salvation. The simple meaning is something is wrong, there's a crisis. That's tzara, means there's a crisis. But many Hashem will save us from that crisis. We say, no, it's deeper than that. The salvation will come from the crisis. The crisis itself will turn out to be that which will bring us the bracha. Yeshua. Like take the story of Purim. Purim was a crisis. There was a moment where all the Jews were being threatened of annihilation, chas v'shalom. There's a famous medrash that says that Haman came to Achashverosh and says, the Jews, what do you need them for? They're too lazy to work. When you ask them to work, they say, sorry, it's Pesach now, we can't work for the next few days. Again, you ask them to work, sorry, it's Shavuos now, we can't work. Sorry, it's Rosh Hashanah, it's Yom Kippur, it's Shmini Atzeres, it's Sukkot. They're never ready to work. Today is Rosh Chodesh. So these guys, they're not really a benefit for the country. So it says when he said these words, there was a heavenly voice and said, you Russia, you wicked person, son of a wicked person. Because of you and through you, the Yidden will have another Yom Tov called Purim. And have another day that they're not working, which is that we have. So basically, not only that what he planned to do didn't come to fruition, not only the tzara was eliminated, this tzara became the source of one of the greatest lights every single year on the day, the 14th of Adar, it's the Yom Tov of Purim. So on a personal level, when there's something which causes distress, something gets in my way, there's a possibility, if I deal with it the right way, with Torah, with Tefillah, I can turn things around, that this, which is a negative, not only won't bring me down, it'll actually lift me higher than I was before. Inyan Tzayer Shemei Oir Rav. Tzayer means there's a lot of light on the top of page 195. Like it is in the middle of the day. When the sun shines the brightest. Okay, as it's written, those that Hashem loves, it says Hashem will shine his light to them the way he shines, the way the sun lights in its strongest part. What's the strongest part is the middle of the day when the sun is in the middle of the sky. So it's not just a play on words, but the play on words is something which teaches us the reality that this which is tzara can be transformed into tzara. In fact, there are stories of the Baal Shem Tov that sometimes when people came to him and they said that there's a certain problem, and they told him what the problem is, he took the words that they told him and he rearranged the letters. There's a certain story, I can't remember the detail. Remember, he rearranged the letters. It should mean something else, and that's what happened after that. Because, okay, these are tzaddikim that they know how to access the letters of how Hashem creates the world. It says in Chumash that Yosef HaTzadik, when he was by the Mitzrayim, and he became the servant of Paro, it says Hashem Matzliach b'yadai. Hashem gave him a lot of success. But the words are b'yadai, in his hand. What do you mean he gave his success in his hand? The literal meaning is whatever he did was successful. But the Medrash says something really incredible. No, he gave him success in his hand, which means they were taunting him. They're trying to make him suffer. So when he brought to the table, he was working there as a servant and as a person who's just bringing the food in. A waiter puts down the fish, and they screamed at him and said, "What did you bring fish for? We asked for meat." It wasn't true, but he just did it to torture him. So in his hand, he turned into meat. And then they brought meat and said, "What did you bring meat for? We asked for fish." In his hand, it turned into fish. How is that possible? Because meat is created by the words of Hashem, and fish are created by the words of Hashem. And he was the tzaddik who had access, so was able to turn things around. You don't want meat? So he drew down those letters of Hashem that create fish. You are a fish. But then, you are a meat. Not, most of us can't really do this exactly, but it means that the words themselves are part of what makes things happen. So when people came to Mah Tovu and said, "This is what's going on," I think the word was arisa, was about a little baby that fell out of his bed. He took that word, rearranged the letters, and meant something else. And then the child became healthy and something else happened, which is a positive thing. Why is this all connected to our discussion here? We'll see. You have to stay tuned until tomorrow.
Hoping you will sleep tonight.
Okay.